It was dark, overcast, and dreary. And it was cold. It was the kind of cold that makes you want to sit on the couch with your blanket snuggled up, holding tight to your favorite hot drink. You see, it was a winter day in Ohio. Specifically, it was January 2021. The world was just beginning to emerge from the COVID pandemic. I was one of the lucky ones. I was still working from home, if you consider working from home lucky. Life was good, sitting in my front office, dressed in relaxed clothes, 6 feet from the refrigerator, watching my neighbors walk their dogs bundled against the cold. But it wasn't so good for my wife. You see, she had been back in the office for quite some time. And I think we can all remember what COVID did to businesses, organizations, and companies. It was devastating. And for her organization, they'd had to close for many months. They laid off half the staff. Their money dried up. And now she's back in the office. And as marketing director, she was trying to find ways to bring people back because they relied upon ticket sales and educational programs and big donors and store sales. And it was tough because in January of 2021, we still felt icky about COVID. Nobody wanted to go out. So it was really tough. And day after day, she would come home stressed. Every day, stressed from trying to find more money. And on that particular day in January of 21, she came home and she asked the proverbial aha question, can I retire? Well, when she asked that, it was like a hornet had stung me right upside the head. Chris, have you ever been stung by a hornet? I got stung 2 months ago right on the side of the neck. And when that hornet stung me, I wanted to swipe it. I did swipe it, and I took off running. And when my wife said, can I retire? I wanted to run. Didn't want to swipe her, but I wanted to run because I wasn't prepared. You see, I knew what was in our 401k balance. I knew what was in her 403b. And I knew the total was nowhere near where more than a decade prior, I had done a spreadsheet and graphed it and kind of did a projection of where it needed to be for us to retire. And like so many Americans, I had kind of randomly picked that number that we needed to be at. And we weren't there. So she said, can I retire? My response was, no. What are you thinking? Well, that was not the response she was expecting or wanted. That didn't go too well. So I knew from her response to my response, I had some learning to do. So at that moment, I decided to learn all I could about financial planning and retirement planning for us. Now, I had an advantage because you see, for the last 17 years, I have been an analyst supporting the U.S. Department of Defense. And I'm really good at what I do. And that means I'm really good at three things. One, research. So when the DOD gives me a project, I jump head first in, I learn all I can, and oftentimes I become the subject matter expert. And number two, it means I'm really good with data. All right, we're in good company. How many people here love data? Anybody? Yeah, data nerds, that's me. All right, I love data, and I'm good at research, and I take the two and I combine them, and I do analysis. Analysis, and that's what I do for a living. So I decided to approach retirement planning the same way, by jumping head first in. And so I got on Google, started Googling everything I could about learning about retirement planning, Social Security, RMDs, all those great topics. And then YouTube. I have to admit, I'm a YouTubeaholic. Thousands of videos over the last 4 years about all the retirement financial planning topics. I mean, I became a YouTube junkie. There needs to be an organization for people like me. But also books. Now, I don't know what COVID was like for you, but being stuck in the house we pretty much had a parking sign right out in front of the driveway that said, Amazon, stop here. Anybody else? Well, I kept them coming back, bringing me retirement books. So I'm reading, I'm learning. Funny thing is, about that time, I started getting postcards in the mail. And those postcards would say, hey, come out and learn about retirement planning and have a free meal on us. Anybody here ever send out those postcards? All right, we got somebody. Well, I did. I got 5 of them. And I'm like, wow, timing's perfect. So I went to 5 of them within about a 1-month period. I got my free steak, my free fish, my free chicken, my free pork chop. But I also learned. Unlike many of the people that go for the free food, I went to learn. And I actually went and visited some of those people. So later on, a few weeks later, I decided to take what I'd been learning. I was in Florida visiting my son. I sat at his dining room table, I opened up my laptop, and I began creating a spreadsheet, like so many of us. But being an analyst, or the DOD, means I don't do just rows and columns. I mean, this was the mother of all spreadsheets, and it kept growing and growing. Charts and graphs. I'm kind of a nerd. I enjoy that. There came a day when I finally had charts and graphs ready to show my wife. And I called her to the front office, and I sat her on my knee in front of the computer. I wrapped my arm around her, and I said, yeah, you can retire. I said, in fact, when we die, our kids are going to be freaking rich. And we had no idea. No idea. I'd been living in financial anxiety for years. Tight with money. Really tight with money. How tight? My wife likes organic fruits and vegetables and meats, right? Well, they're expensive. I was so tight that I would take the grocery list and I would go and I would buy regular fruits and vegetables, peel the stickers off before I took them home, just to save a buck or two. If you want to know how tight I was, my daughter's in the back. You can ask her. She'll tell you. I'm the kind of person that's always turning the light switches off just to save $1. But that day that I got a plan, that day that I saw the charts and the graphs, it changed everything. It changed me. It changed my wife. It changed how we related to each other. It changed how we related with our children and other people. It changed how we viewed life. Later that fall, my wife was beyond 59 and a half years. That plan that we had gave us the freedom that we took money out of her 403B account. We gutted our house, had to move out for 30 days, and we got the house of our dreams. That never would have happened without a plan. Not only that, we moved a retirement bucket list forward. And aloha, we went to Hawaii. We took our daughters with us. That day changed everything. But also, as I looked at the charts and the graphs, I realized there's so much here I still don't know. So I told her, I'm like, honey, we need help. And so I went on the internet and I started looking for an advisor, Googling the ones in my area. Came up with a list. I called the first one, set up an appointment. They asked for all my financial information. If you deal with clients, you know that can be a little bit tough. Whoa, I'd never had that happen. They wanted my financial information. I had to get over that, but I did. And I sent it to them and I set up an appointment and I arrived. Second story of a building about 140 years old. I walk in, go to the conference room. It's a standard conference room, TV screen at the end. And the gentleman sat across from me, and he was an older gentleman. And he had been a financial advisor for many years. Too many years. He sat there and went through the charts and graphs of his. And then at the end, I was so excited to tell him what I'd been doing. So I said, hey, let me tell you about the spreadsheet I created, my do-it-yourself spreadsheet. And I told him about it. And he looks at me from across the table and he says, did you include sequence of returns? Whew. Boy, I missed that one. I didn't even know what SOR was. And he says, if you didn't include sequence of returns, your plan is garbage. It's junk. It's worthless. He said, because if you didn't include sequence of returns, if a negative sequence of returns happens the year that you retire, you're going to be right out there sitting on a park bench holding a tin cup. Feeling a little cringe? Yeah, so was I. I wanted to fight or flight, but my parents taught me better than that. So I stayed still. He finished his speech, his presentation. I shook his hand. I left. I never went back. That night I went home. I looked at number 2 on the list. Called the next day, set up an appointment, sent them all of my information. The day came, I drove, big 2-story brick building. Receptionist walks me into the conference room. Now when I say conference room, I want you to use your imagination and think of an 18th century British Victorian castle ballroom. Think of the wood that you would have seen in that castle, because this conference room was built to impress. I mean, it was floor to ceiling wood, wall to wall, columns, everything glistening in wood. Obviously meant to impress. The table, giant wood table, big enough for the Knights of the Round Table. And the advisor, he sits across from me, way over there, somewhere on the other side of that giant wooden table. And he spends the next 40 minutes talking about me and my wife's Social Security. I thought that was kind of odd because I'd sent him all of my information. And when he was done, he gave me a 22-page report on me and my wife's Social Security. So excitedly, I told him about my spreadsheet and all that I had been doing. And he sits across from that glistening wooden table and he says, well, we have our own systems. Once again, I just wanted to run, but I didn't. I shook his hand. We finished. I left. I never went back. I'm not feeling too good now. I go home that night. I look at number 3, and I call this lady, set up an appointment, and I go. Now, I can't tell you much about that building because I wasn't there very long. It was white. That's all I could tell you. It was really bright white because I walked in the door, and as I'm walking in, she says, hello, Barry, I'm such and such. I'm all about annuities. That's what I do here. I do annuities. And with that, I said, well, I don't have annuities. Perhaps in the future. I'm not interested right now. And she took me by the arm and she turned me back around, took me back to the door and said goodbye. Shortest client advisor meeting in history, 3 minutes, 46 seconds. Out the door. I'm really not feeling too good. So I go home that night. I looked at number 4. I called, set an appointment, sent them my information. The day came and I went and I arrived, and it's in a strip mall, probably built in the 50s or 60s. Low glass front, the low slanted ceiling. You might can picture it. Small. I go in and the first thing I notice is eagles. It's a single advisor firm, and this man really likes eagles. There's eagle statues and pictures, and he comes out and he greets me, and we go to the conference room. Small conference room, small table, small screen. I see some charts and graphs. I also notice he's really into his college alma mater. Okay, there's bobbleheads, there's helmets, there's footballs in that god-awful orange color. The big aerial photo of the stadium, right? I mean, this guy's really into his college. So we sit down and talk. And he asked questions about me. He asked questions about my wife. He asked questions about our children. He asked questions about what we like to do, recreation, entertainment. He asked about our retirement goals. I think he talked about the numbers, but I don't remember. Because he talked about me. He wanted to get to know me. We also learned that he was learning to fly. I had already learned to fly. My son's an Air Force pilot. We had a great conversation. We talked college football. I went and I told him, I'm really nervous here because should I tell him about the spreadsheet or not? But I took a chance and I told him. I said, hey, I want to tell you what I've been doing. And I told him about it. And he looks at me and he says, you know, I'd like to see that. I said, sure. That night I went home, I emailed it to him. I went back the following week. As I walk into his office, he's at his desk, and he has a computer screen up beside his desk. And as I walk in, the first thing I see is my spreadsheet on his screen. Wow. I sit across from him, and he looks at me, and he points to the screen, and he says, Barry, I have been doing this 27 years. I have never seen anything like that. It's absolutely incredible. Could I use that with my other clients? I'm like, yeah, not yet. I went home that night and I told my wife, I said, honey, I found our guy. The following week, she goes with me. She meets him. We talk. We sign. He becomes our fee advisor. Shortly thereafter, he got married. I don't know, maybe a second or third marriage. I don't know which. He invited me to his wedding. I was the only client invited. And at the reception, he introduces me to his new bride. This is what he said. He said, honey, this is Barry, the genius that I've told you about. Wow. He goes on his honeymoon. A few weeks later, I go back to talk to him, regular meeting. And at that point in time, he started talking about something called AUM, Assets Under Management. He would like to manage my assets. He saw my portfolio, and he wanted to manage it. And I said, well, that's possible in the future, but right now, I'm really happy doing what I'm doing. My wife's happy where she's at, but perhaps in the future. Michael, that was 3.5 years ago. I haven't heard from him since. So after all I went through, I guess you'd say I still don't have a financial advisor. But I learned. You see, I was a DIYer. And that spreadsheet kind of freaked out some advisors. Because it was a tool that I created. And yet there are a lot of people out there just like me that you come in contact with who are doing it themselves, because there's a lot of tools that we can use, right? These are just some of what I call DIY because we can put the information in and do it ourselves. By a show of hands, has anybody out there ever used any of these tools? Anybody? Okay, couple. So these are the tools that somebody like me might use. Now there's other tools that perhaps you might use. Okay, show of hands. Has anybody out there used any of these tools? More hands. More hands. The point here is that tools are great. And that tool that I created changed our life. And if a DIYer like me had a life-changing moment with one of these tools, for me it was the one on the bottom, then why are we coming to see you if we can do it ourselves? Well, I would say it's because there's one missing tool. And that missing tool is you. I needed to go see a financial advisor because there were many things I didn't understand. And we DIYers, we do recognize that we need your help. We recognize your expertise, your knowledge, your education. And we're coming to you for that. Oops, where was it? Uh-oh. Okay, all right. But as great as technology is, you'll see a couple of statements here by Michael Kitces that perhaps maybe there's too much emphasis on the tools. That maybe we need to focus more on the face-to-face interactions. So what can you do with a DIYer? Well, from my experience, I would say embrace the client's journey. If they're doing it themselves, that means they've got great initiative. You could say, Mr. Smith, wow, what great initiative. That's amazing. The knowledge you're gaining. That is fantastic. You are the kind of client we love because you're so engaged. You know, you could, you already have your own software. So you sit down with Mrs. Jones and you say, Mrs. Jones, you've got your DIY, we have ours. What I'd like to do is make them equal with inputs to make them as accurate together as possible. And then Mrs. Jones, what I want you to do is take that program home, or that DIY tool home, and I want you to run experiments. I want you to do scenarios. Change the percentages, change your retirement age, do all that good stuff. And then when you have questions, Mrs. Jones, come back and see me because I'm going to help you with it. As the advisor, that's why I'm here. Always remember, and I'm speaking as a client, used to be client. Your client is and should always be the hero of their financial journey. You're the guide. You're the guide. And we're looking to you for that. And you're doing amazing work, absolutely phenomenal work in what you're doing. If I could choose my career over, after doing this for 4.5 years, I would choose your career. Because of the ability you have to change lives. It's complicated. You know it. And those of us who are trying it on our own, we know. Financial planning is complicated. And 76% of the people that don't have a plan say they don't have a plan because they're overwhelmed. And that's where you come in. You clear it up. You show us what can be. You create visions of the future. But more importantly, I want to tell you what you're doing. If you haven't figured this out yet, I'll tell you from my perspective as a client. What you're actually doing is that you give hope. You're giving people hope. And that is the greatest gift of all. Because we live in a chaotic time. Stress. And you're clearing it up and you're helping them. I want to finish by talking about one other statistic, and that is 42%. 42% of the people who don't have a plan say they don't have a plan because they don't have enough money. It's not worth planning. That makes me sad because money defines us, doesn't it? I mean, money defines the clothes that we wear. It defines the car that we drive. It defines the house we live in. It defines our vacations, our entertainment, it defines our holidays. Money defines family time around the dinner table. And when 42% of the people say that their money is not worth planning, to me what they're saying is, my life is not worth planning. Ladies and gentlemen, every life is worth planning. And I know that you want the high-ticket people. You want those high-dollar individuals. But there are so many people out there that need your services. This 42% of the people, they need a vision. They need hope. And some of them actually have money. And you have an amazing ability to change that attitude because you come in contact with people all day, every day, on the street, social settings, churches, schools, neighborhoods. You come in contact with this 42%, and you have an amazing ability to flip that thinking. And when you do, you are truly changing lives. I'm going to put up my final slide. And I'd like for you to take your phones and take a picture, because if there's one thing I want you to remember is this. This is a phrase we use in our company. We use it in social media. We use it when we talk to people. Because I truly believe for every single person, they need to hear, you matter. Your money matters and your future matters. No matter their income, no matter how much they have or don't have in retirement savings. People need to hear this. And you're in such a beautiful position to share that. I'm going to close with a promise. I'm going to make a promise to you that if you take this and you let it become part of who you are and how you speak to people and relate to people, and you can look at people in the eye and with conviction and compassion say, you matter. Your money matters. Your future matters. I promise you, you will change the world. Thank you for your time.